It occurred to me. It occurred to me the other day that I never made a video during my experience when I couldn't sleep for 6 days. And I really needed to. I wish now that I had, because there were just so many things that happened that I went through that I needed to be recorded, and I wish I had recorded them, but I didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and see what I remember from that time and describe it to you. First of all, I hadn't slept. I did not sleep, save for very brief periods of time, for 6 days. Within a 6 day period, I got maybe about 3 hours of sleep. 3 or 4. It was hell on earth. I completely went crazy. And it gave me a new perspective on a lot of things. A lot of things. I don't ever wish that on anyone. And I don't ever want to go through it again. I don't know why it happened. Occasionally I had had episodes with insomnia that maybe lasted a night. And even that will screw me up. But never like this. Yes, I did have stress going on in my life with 2 jobs, and I eventually ended up quitting one of them because I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I think that had something to do with it, but other than that, I don't know. It just came out of the blue. And it was some scary shit. At first, I took several things actually to try and help me to sleep. None of them worked. I tried melatonin. I tried Z-Quil or whatever the heck, over the counter help you sleep stuff. That didn't work. I forget what the third thing was that I took, but anyway. After I had one trip to the emergency room, and after my second trip to the doctor because of the issue, I had been like awake for 4 days at that point. I was losing my mind, and I'll describe that in a minute. I ended up on a medication that I still take, actually several medications, to put me to bed, to help me sleep. And they did. They did. It took a while. And even the doctor told me, you know what, don't expect, this is a process, and we're experimenting to see what works. And as much as painful as this is for you, as hard as this is, you're just going to have to be patient and see how it goes. And I was. I started taking medication I believe on the 4th day. I started taking trazodone and a couple other things. And by the 6th day, if I remember correctly, that's when I actually finally got some sleep. I don't know. 6 days, I know I was without sleep, mostly for 6 days. But anyway, enough about that. The actual experience, all the stuff I went through mentally, man. Besides just being physically exhausted, of course, and that goes without saying. What did I experience? I experienced paranoia. For example, I would get scared or have a scared feeling in my stomach when I was out of work this whole time. For like a week and a half, I was out of work. Just to give myself enough time to, the initial insomnia, and then to get my body straight and all that, and make sure that it was actually gonna stick and I was gonna be level enough to go back to work. So I was out for like a week and a half. Anyway, but yeah, terrible anxiety over / paranoia, over all kinds of things. Like I got this anxious feeling if I'd be here in my room and would hear my roommate's car drive up because he was coming home from work. And I was fearful of that. And fearful of having to deal with him and answer questions because he knew I had to tell him what was going on. I experienced distortion of my senses. Sounds became either like irritated me or they became distorted. Like I remember one time I was laying in the bed and I was trying to sleep, and I had my fan on to give me some white noise in the background, to try and put me to sleep. And I was hearing different patterns and sounds within the fan. The sound from the fan became like this all-encompassing, loud, like, God, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. Colors became very offensive to me. Certain colors, like what I'm wearing right now. This is one of my favorite colors. It's turquoise. You can see by my hair, whatever. I like blue, I like green. That's the theme of my room. But during this whole time period, certain colors that I usually love actually made me sick, physically sick. Like I wanted to puke sick. my sense of smell was distorted. Certain things, if I remember correctly, certain smells or whatever that didn't bother me before, all of a sudden same thing. Oh my God, like really would make me ill or feel like I was going to get sick. Or I would smell things. I want to say I would smell things that weren't there. I'm not sure if I did or not, but I definitely know that certain odors that wouldn't normally offend me, like really would just, made me sick. It was really, okay, the sense thing. I was seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Like, I thought I saw something that moved out of the corner of my eye and nothing was there. My thoughts were very hard. It was hard to form sentences, to speak, and or I would repeat myself. Like repeat the same word more than once. My anxiety was like off the roof. Off the roof. I wasn't just afraid of things like, oh, my roommates come home and I don't want to deal with them. I was afraid of, actually, would feel claustrophobia if I tried to lay down on the bed. And have the pillow next to my face like you normally do for bed. I got this sense of claustrophobia. Like I was maybe gonna be smothered or not be able to breathe in the middle of the night if I actually did fall asleep. Yeah, I remember that. And I also remember an actual fear of falling asleep. Like if I actually did get to the point to where my body started to fall asleep, like the normal kind of sinking I'd wake myself back up out of it because I was afraid to fall asleep. I was afraid that I would fall asleep and not wake up again. I was afraid that I would not be able to breathe in my sleep. And I had the doctor ask me, well, has someone died recently? I mean, do you know if anything could possibly be causing you to have this anxiety about sleeping? And no. I mean, the only thing I could think of was that my dad passed away last year, and it was because of a lung disease. And he did essentially suffocate to death. And I saw it. I was there when it happened. And yes, that was an extremely traumatic experience, and I am still having problems with processing it. but it hadn't caused any kind of issues as far as anxiety or anything. So there was no definitive real cause. I mean, just, it's funny. Just, I had one doctor tell me that essentially the reason why I had such a high level of anxiety, just about falling asleep or anxiety about anything, I mean, I got to the point to where one of the doctors that I saw, right before I got put on the trazodone, I was in the appointment with her, and I couldn't sit still. I mean, I was wringing my hands, and I was just standing up and talking, and like I was telling her about everything. You know, this was before I had got put on the sleep meds. Telling her how I'd gone to the ER. I was prescribed one thing by the ER doctor that I was scared to take, Ambien, because I've heard such horror stories about it, and I didn't want to take it. So I didn't take it. But at the same time, I was like wrestling with that decision, and I knew I needed to get some sleep, and I was sick, and all this. So she came up with another plan. Okay, well, we're going to try some other drugs and see. Because she didn't like Ambien either. She herself had gone through some things, so she prescribed other stuff. But anyway, I'm telling her about all of this, and I'm in the appointment, and I can't even sit still. I'm wringing my hands. I'm like, I'm breathing heavy. It's like I was manic. And I'm not bipolar, never been diagnosed as bipolar. This was all from going without sleep for 6 days. Or 4 days at that point. 4 days. But, you know, throughout the whole episode, the level of anxiety I felt was just insane. And I'm not one that usually has problems with anxiety. Depression, yes, but not anxiety. I hadn't had any problems with anxiety in years. But once my body got stuck in this I can't sleep mode, yeah, it was just a shit show. You know, I kept thinking I was probably experiencing a lot of the same things that, except for the part about being high, that a tweaker would go through. Paranoia and anxiety, I've heard about all that, and the, I don't know, like, I was thinking, like, you know, this must be what they go through when they're up for like 6 days. Yeah. To some degree. Because, like, I was going online and reading all this stuff and trying to find out, okay, well, what happens to your body when you go without this much sleep and this much sleep? And it's like everything I was reading, it was like, yep, check, check, check. You will lose your mind. You will go crazy. And yeah, I did. One of the things that happened, I just remembered, or that would happen when I tried to lay down, or rather sit up, because I had pillows that were propped up on my bed. But I would like lay back on the, oh no, yeah, I get the feeling of claustrophobia if I laid down. Told you about that. But even after I first started taking the sleep meds, it didn't work right away. It still took a couple of days. And one of the things that I was experiencing, I was just the trippiest shit. If I closed my eyes, like, I would have a movie going on, like images, really fast images, like behind my eyelids, like just really fast. The way I was in contact constantly during this time with a friend of mine who has experienced mental health issues, who was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, and a lot of the things that I was describing to him, well, besides the fact that he himself has dealt with insomnia, some of the other things that I was explaining to him, he had experienced as well when he had gone through periods where his meds weren't working right, and he was going through a time. And the reason he told me that my, those really fast images and, everything is, because your brain is just too active. It's overly active. You can. Oh gosh, I remember one thing. Wow. Okay, so I started to fall asleep. Oh yeah, I had just started taking the sleep meds. I did get sleep with them. It was not an easy process. It was not a comfortable process. The pills, oh God, I hated the feeling they gave me. Yeah, it was just this awful, heavy kind of like, still anxiety there. Anxiety, and my body would start aching and stuff, and it was weird. But I remember those thoughts that would, project the little images behind my eyelids when I'd close my eyes. I remember thinking thoughts, like having sentences going through my mind, and words would become distorted. Yeah, like, wow, it really freaked me out. Yeah, they would totally become distorted. As if, like, maybe if I was watching a movie or something, and the words would just this get all weird. And I remember thinking that aspect of it, I was like, is this what it's like to be on acid? Like, wow. I'm glad I can smile about it now, because when this was happening, it was a horrible, horrible process. It was terrible, but it did provide me I had dealt with depression before in my life. I have for years. I did years ago get some anxiety, so I had a little experience with that. But this whole insomniac nightmare really gave me a new perspective on a lot of things. I had a lot more sympathy for my friend who had dealt with issues like this and worse, and did it for so long. And I don't know if I told him, but I remember thinking, I don't know how you went through all of this for so long and didn't kill yourself. Because you don't know what it's like until you've been there. And all of that stuff that I experienced over that week, I can understand now why somebody would kill themselves over that shit. If you can't get things balanced, I get it. You know. And I thought that I had a good amount of understanding and sympathy towards other folks that have dealt with mental health issues. Stronger than mine in the past. Because I had, like I said, I had just had issues with depression and a little bit of anxiety when I was younger, but you know, I've had friends and family members that have dealt with more serious, well, no, different mental health issues, and I thought I was sympathetic. I thought I had some kind of an idea, and you have no fucking idea. None. Unless I've never done acid or any, I mean, I chewed some shrooms, but they didn't do anything for me, but I've never done anything like trip. I suppose if you've done those things and you've had a bad trip, I mean, this is what I can equate it to. It was a bad fucking trip. So, yeah, I totally get that. I totally get it. But anyway, I wanted to record everything that I can remember about that time. I wish to God I had actually recorded it while it was going on. I thought I did, but I checked my videos and there's nothing there. I don't ever want to return to that hell again. I have I have slept better. It took, like I said, it took a while. I want to say it took about 2 weeks for me to go from being completely whacked out because I couldn't sleep to being normal again. But I still go through issues with a little bit of sleep deprivation. Over the past 3 nights, I haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep. I've gotten some, not as much as I would like. That's actually been my fault because I've been staying up late watching TV and not going to bed early enough. And when I do that, it's not a good thing. And I can tell you that it still takes me 3 hours to fall asleep. Maybe longer after I have taken the sleep meds. The doctor would probably want to prescribe something stronger so that it doesn't take quite as long. But I told her that I'm okay with it. I think I told her 2 hours. It's actually 3. I think I'm okay with that. As long as I can, I don't want to get on anything stronger. Or a stronger dose of the trazodone, because even though I take this 100 milligrams, it scares me. It scared me to even do that. I was terrified of taking any kind of medicine to make me sleep because I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to wake up again. Or I was worried that, God forbid, something happened like a fire in the middle of the night and I'm so out of it from my medicine that I can't get up. To save myself. Those thoughts, that was my original thinking. Like, oh my God, what if I'm so out of it, from these sleeping pills that I can't wake up in the middle of an emergency, or a thought, a fear when I first started taking the sleeping pills was, actually, trazodone is for depression, but it also